David DeGuzman inside the NBC4 Digital Center for the latest edition of the Digital Sports Roundtable. We are counting down to what should be a very exciting game in Atlanta, the national championship game between Ohio State and Notre Dame. And here to help me out, we bring in sports director Joe Nugent, who is in Atlanta right now. And Joe, you've been very busy, so get us up to speed as to what you've been up to and what the team has been up to as we get closer to kickoff.
Yeah, we arrived right around lunchtime on Friday, a good 7 hours before Ohio State flew down and arrived in Atlanta. So we were out at the airport waiting for the Buckeyes for a couple hours around dinner on Friday. Notre Dame showed up in that time, so a chance to visit with Marcus Freeman real quick before he hopped on the bus. And then the Buckeyes went back to the team hotel. They had a dinner last night, woke up this morning, did media day, answered questions for a full hour, which you know, it's always fun when you're a football player. You're trying to get ready for the biggest game of your life, and you know, you're kind of answering. So there's a lot of media, right, from other places other than Columbus. So these guys are talking about the same stuff that we've been talking about for months. So they're sort of answering the same things over and over again. But they did that this morning for an hour. Had practice this afternoon at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. More meetings after that. Watched film from practice, and get ready for practice coming up again tomorrow.
It's really funny how the team tries so hard to stay to a routine when there is nothing routine about what they're about to do right now. But this is a very highly motivated team. They've been so motivated throughout this entire postseason, especially coming off of the Michigan game and, you know, all the heat that Ryan Day took after that loss to the Wolverines. They've really turned things around. Let's hear from the players on how one of their motivating factors going into this happens to be their head coach, Ryan Day.
But I don't think no one's faced more adversity than Coach Day. So, I mean, he's my coach, man. He's my leader. I'll do anything for him. So, to go out there and try to win this for him means everything.
I mean, you see everything that he's been through this year. People saying he should be fired and this, that, and the third. But I see everything that he's been through this year. See everything people saying about him on Twitter. I wasn't here when he first got the head coaching job, but I know this year for sure we definitely got to win this for him.
He's a really caring person. He does everything that he can for the team, and you can know that in his heart he truly cares about his players, and that he'll do whatever he can to help us.
So hearing from three different players there, just about how motivated they are. What do you think is the mindset, Joe, going into obviously the biggest game of their lives and obviously of the season? Again, no shortage of motivation, but I think everyone can come to a consensus on that team that they want to win this one for their head coach.
Yeah, there's no question. You know, it comes with the territory of being the head coach of Ohio State. When you lose games, I mean, things turn ugly. That's the way it has been. You know, maybe a little more uglier as of late because those losses have also come against Michigan, you know, which we know, of course, how important that game is to the program, the history of this team. So anytime there's a losing streak against the team from Ann Arbor, you know, people are not going to be happy. They're going to be really angry about it. I mean, they're still angry about it. Ohio State's playing for the national championship. But, you know, I think for the team, you know, it was rough at the end of the regular season, and they've been on this great run. They fixed things, they're better, and they want to end it the right way. They know the way the end of the regular season ended was not the right way. So, you know, I think that's what this is about, a chance to win something, because there's a lot of guys in this team that haven't won anything. So while the motivation is surrounded around that, they are trying to keep it simple. They are trying to stay in the routine that you talked about, and it's all about focus and preparation. That's what they believe is going to win this football game. When you have a talented team like Ohio State, you know, you don't have to worry about talent, right? What you have to worry about is execution, being ready for unusual situations. We know Notre Dame, especially on special teams, you know, will potentially present some very unpredictable challenges as the game goes on. So for Ohio State, it's all about preparation, and it's all about, you know, being ready for anything when they're on the field Monday night.
So last thing I want to get to before we let you go, as we get into the nitty-gritty of the game planning, one guy that was really limited in the Cotton Bowl was Jeremiah Smith, especially after those two big performances earlier in the playoffs. Let's hear from Jeremiah Smith and then from Notre Dame as to how Jeremiah Smith might be a factor going into this national championship game.
in the Rose Bowl and then coming to the Cotton Bowl, you know, just them doing different things, changing their scheme up for against me. But I mean, like you said, whatever I could do to help the team win. It's not really a big deal for me. As long as we win, that's all I really care about, and it got us to the national championship.
Texas did a really great job of stopping him, but they wasn't able to stop, other players. So, we have to find a really great balance to kind of stop everything that they're doing.
You're going to have to do some different things to try to keep him off balance, but also keep the rhythm of the quarterback off balance. But the other part of that is we got good players too. We got to do what we do, and we're going to trust our guys to, get the job done no matter what we call defensively.
So real quick, Joe, Jeremiah Smith, X factor in this one, you think?
Ohio State wants him to be the X factor. That's for sure. And Notre Dame doesn't want him to be. I don't think Notre Dame is going to exactly be able to replicate what Texas did. I think to a degree, Notre Dame has different players, right? Different strengths, and they want to play to their strengths. They know that's the path to winning this game. And they know that if they straight focus on Jeremiah, that again, Carnell is going to have a big game. Emeka is going to have a big game. So I think what they're going to try to do is put together a plan that limits Ohio State's passing attack as a whole. It might mean Jeremiah gets 100 yards, but I think the idea is that this game doesn't get out of control. They want to keep it close. They want to get it to the fourth quarter. And also, listen, last week against Texas, Jeremiah was targeted. He only had the one catch for 3 yards, but he was targeted more than that. So, Ohio State still tried to give him the ball. It just only worked out on one pass, which, by the way, it was a short pass behind the line of scrimmage that he turned in to a 3-yard gain.
Well, we'll see if he can become the X factor that he was in those first 2 games. Joe Nugent, always appreciated. He's in Atlanta. We'll look forward to all your pregame reports day of, and of course, all the postgame reaction from what should be a very exciting night in Atlanta, Notre Dame, Ohio State in the national championship. For Joe Nugent, I'm Dave DeGuzman. We'll catch you next time on the Digital Sports Roundtable.